Welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 208, Giving. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson, also lovingly known as RCA, and I am the host, and I'm here today in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, I welcome you to a whole brand new week. I hope that you are doing well, and yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Yes, happy Monday. If you're listening on a Monday, we always do this. But there are some of our listeners that are really dedicated. They literally say to me, I was waiting this morning for the download or the upload, whatever it is. Yeah. And anyway, that's great, friends. Thanks for your support. Also, I meant to say a couple of weeks ago, thank you for everybody who reached out. Do you guys remember that day I was feeling a little low? And I go, maybe I said you said, is it money? No, it's not money. I just feel a little like
just vibing low.
Like, does anybody care that we're doing this every week? 'Cause I think I was a little discouraged that we had not hit exactly 200,000 yet. And right. I realized that one of the reasons those numbers went up so high is I was doing a daily affirmation. And so many people, were listening to those, and that is awesome. So, but the financial support has to match the time, that it takes. So if somebody's super interested in seeing that again, let me know and let your giving, show that. But the other thing I am considering too is adding a maybe even just once a month, like a deeper meditative process where I take people through a release meditation, like one I recently uploaded on YouTube. It's the first little bit. I mean, it was only up less than 24 hours, 11 or 12 views already, which was kind of surprising. So if that would support you, definitely let us know. But thank you for the reach outs and for the support and the love. And one person said, I so appreciate you, and I'm sorry I let my giving lapse. Hearing you say that, she said, brought me back into integrity with my giving, and I'm going to start re-giving right now. She said, my credit card changed, and I just never got around to it, and she had a move in the midst of there, and just kind of, let it go. So thank you, dear friends, for all that support. And all the ways you support me and our show being on the air. So, but those touch-ins were sweet.
Yeah, and we'll have a link to that meditation, that release meditation.
Yeah,
and it's about 15 minutes long. Yeah. And if you haven't already, go subscribe. Just go subscribe. It's you have a couple of hundred subscribers, which is fantastic, but there are so many good things going on your channel that absolutely.
Yeah, last I looked, I had 379, and that seems a little low considering I have 424 videos.
And it's just all about word of mouth. So why don't you share it? Why don't you and like liking and subscribing? All of those things are really, really valuable for YouTubers because it helps other people just like you find the channel and find those videos. And so when you subscribe, when you like, when you make a comment, you are telling the YouTube algorithm, that I like this. You're telling the AI. Yeah, and then the algorithm says, I bet other like-minded people would like it as well. So all of those things that you hear YouTubers, say in their videos, make sure to smash that subscribe or whatever, those really do have very real, really real benefits for folks, just like RCA looking to help spread the word. The message.
The whole reason for the show is to make the world a better place, and so what I realized, my tendency is to try to do it all myself, and you may have noticed, and I do really need your help in this regard, especially because I can provide. I'm not one of those people, you always see these ads, about providing content. I have more content. I can just sit down and do spiritual teaching and work all day long, but without people sharing it and liking and subscribing, more people won't hear. And I think some people are saturated with my teachings and others have never even heard of it. So, yes, thank you for your support in that and for sharing the word. It's been amazing to realize the global impact we are having in 90 countries, 90 plus, and all of that. So, but as we see what's happening in our world right now, I mean, every day there seems to be another a violent action. I also believe that and know that the more the actions get sensationalized, the more it encourages it. I also know if people knew they were loved, if people knew they were connected to God and to each other, none of these things we're seeing right now would happen. So when I'm talking about spreading our message, it's not so I can have some ego need built. It's not so I can say, oh, I've reached so-and-so. It's so the world can change for the better. And we have to start with our children, actually. You know, when I think of what point somebody has to get to, like we've seen on the news, to start shooting in a crowd of people, the number of people that have thrown away, disregarded, ignored, danger sign after danger sign. It says to me, we have a problem, not just with that individual, with the parenting, with the schooling, with the support systems, with zero rites of passage for our young kids. You know, so this is a problem for all of us, not just we want to say, look what that shooter did. And of course, that's wrong. Of course, that should not happen. But it is a societal issue that it ever got to that point. But when you're part of a community, when you're loved, when you're supported, when you're connected, when you know that God is everywhere, when you know God is in you, nothing like that would ever even cross your mind.
Right.
You know, and so it's why we do what we do. So today, Dave, give us the title. I could go on that topic for quite a long time.
We should. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. No, but today's topic is giving, because we are in a series of episodes on prosperity and giving and all of that. And next week we'll be receiving. So today's episode is giving.
Yeah. And friends, I wanted to talk about this. You know, in nearly everything I write, there is a whole chapter or section on giving, because I believe, well, first of all, I should share my self-knowledge, which is that my love language is gift giving, I believe. And that said, giving has always been really important to me and to my life. And it's always been really important to me in my relationships with friends, with loved ones, with intimate friends or loved ones. And even in the family I grew up in, I've always loved to give gifts. Like, for instance, one of my favorite things when I was 16 and I was during my teenage years, I used to spend a lot of time at the Atlanta Symphony, and I had a dear friend who played in the symphony, and I took some lessons from the percussionist and in the symphony. And I also ushered every week, because as I ushered every week, I'd see all the symphonies, you know, for free. And I'd go backstage and hang out with the musicians and everything. I became friends with the house manager. And anyway, I felt like a real city girl, going to the symphony every week. I'd ride the subway down, you know. And anyway, I learned about these fancy restaurants near Symphony Hall. And it's the Robert Woodruff Art Center in Atlanta. But anyway, and so for my parents' anniversary, when I was 16, I took them to a fancy restaurant. And I felt so rich, you know, doing that. I made my money cleaning houses. I've done all sorts of, icky jobs, growing up for money. I delivered pizza, all kinds of things. But anyway, my big, like a strong memory of my childhood in giving gifts was giving that to my parents. You know, I was only 16 and they were like, honey, you really can't afford this. I said, actually, I can. I come here at least once a month, and they were quite surprised that I had been there and hung out with the house manager and, so I find giving to be something that puts me in the flow of life. I find that giving is something that makes me feel prosperous. And it's interesting because, some people tell me when they give that, they're afraid. And when I give I know it puts me back in the flow. And I just had an experience of this recently. I had a couple little bills came in, that were unexpected. And I started getting fear around money. We all do it from time to time, right? And it was like, my goodness. Well, it was like, well, this is going out and that's going out. And then I've got this big event coming up. There's going to be, I know, some hidden costs there. I started saying, I'll just be real. I started saying, why did I say I would provide lunch for these people at the retreat? And then when I was talking to my chef friend, she was like, well, what do you want to cook? Why don't you just do cold cuts? I said, no, I want to make salmon. And she goes, you want to cook salmon for all these people? I said, yes, it's prosperous. And then I said to myself, oh, it's prosperous. So I talked myself out of it. And then I said, wait a minute, it's time. It's time to tithe, and I'm going to over tithe because I can tell I am out of the flow right now. And so what happened as I gave that extra money, I just, within less than a week, I took in over 5 times the amount of the tithe.
And that kind of thing happens over and over for you, doesn't it? Like over and
over again. And so I laugh at myself anytime I start to get wigged out about money. I just go, what? Write the check, do the forgiveness, and be done. Get out of your head on this one. So friends, I teach this stuff. I know it to be true, but, I'm still dealing with old ideas, about money. So, and for me, giving is more than money, but certainly includes money. Yeah. So, the idea of giving, and of course, in the scriptures, it says, as you give, so too shall you receive.
Right.
Yeah. So I think if you are in fear around money right now, this would be an important activity for you to consider because, anybody who's driving, like I was just talking to, I just came off a family event. And there were a lot of great nieces and nephews and cousins. And so anyway, my niece has this, I love her husband. And he was telling me he drives a really big truck for work. And he's putting $50 a day worth of gas in his vehicle. Because he's working right now, his particular job is an hour away from where he lives, and he has to have his truck for work most days. So it would be pretty difficult to not have something triggered around money when you're seeing so much go out, And I think a lot of us are feeling that. I mean, my goodness, sometimes my commute is 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Usually it's about an hour and a half, hour and 45. But when it hits that 2 hour mark and you're sitting there and you're just watching the gas gauge go down, it's like, okay, how much this month on gas? Well, when I heard him $50 a day, I said, you know what, boy, I need to just be grateful I'm not spending that. But everything is higher right now. So that said, our lack mentality is going to be more easily triggered, during such a time. So my point is, in this first half, is just to consider, are you in the flow with your giving? And the spiritual teaching is super clear that however you give, whatever way, whatever amounts, whatever, abundance you put to it, that you're going to receive that back. But my experience is I receive far more back than what I give. That's my experience. It's like grace is somehow inherent and all these spiritual laws. And of course, the law of giving really is the law of cause and effect in action. Sometimes it's called the law of circulation. Whatever you put out, we know in science, it's the same thing too. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's simply how the universe works. So it's not like you don't have to believe it or not. It's how it works. So whether you believe it or not, the spiritual law exists, and then how you're participating in it is going to be important for how you experience abundance and goodness. And, what I've noticed with people who have a lot of money, and for some reason in my career, I've been fortunate to work with millionaires and billionaires. And what I've noticed about how they think about money is that it's always going to be there, and there's always enough. And I'll say, even just because they have money, it doesn't mean every area of their life is perfect. I've also noticed that. So sometimes we think, well, if I just get more money, everything will be okay. And just read an article the other day, somebody that won like 12 million or something like that just ended up getting put in jail for, I can't even remember what. It's like, if you don't have the consciousness to hold that money, it's, yeah, you get my feeling there. So think about, are you in alignment with this teaching on giving? And is there a way you could put yourself more in the flow of life? Could you put yourself more in the flow of good by your giving? So, you may not be in a spiritual setting right now, say on a Sunday. Well, what you want to think about is, what is inspiring me? What is lifting me up? What is causing me to remember the truth? What is keeping me on track, and give to that. Give to that. Because anytime we give financially, it's like saying to the universe, thank you for this. I want more. Because anything we financially support ensures it will be there for the future. Yeah. So think about, am I in alignment? Am I out of alignment? And even in my case, even though I was certainly in alignment with my giving, I decided to tithe more. And the giving, the more is what felt extravagant. It's what felt abundant. And it's what put me in the flow of prosperity. It was like there was some inherent trust in overgiving. I love the statement, you cannot outgive God. I have proven that over and over and over in my own life. I am a single mother living in the most beautiful neighborhood in Orlando, in an incredible home with an incredible yard, with a safe place to walk. These things matter to me. And where I am at this moment right now in my life is a result of my giving and staying in the flow of God's good for me. So giving is definitely an important part of you knowing your prosperity. So I want this for you, friend. I want you to consider, and you don't have to give to me. Give wherever you're fed. Give wherever give wherever supports you. But what I know right now is, with how tough it is to be in the world with all the bad news, we want to be lifting up those people that are reminding us of the truth. We want to be lifting up those organizations that are a stand for goodness, wholeness, peace, love, connection. And if we don't invest in those things, we're going to be the ones suffering in the future. Yeah, so give that some thought. Am I in alignment with this idea about giving? Am I feeling in the flow of life? If I'm in fear, the first thing I need to do is give. Even if it's a small amount, give. That will begin to move that flow forward and get you more in relationship with the divine in a new way. So we'll talk more about giving as we come back right after this brief message. Hello and welcome back. We're glad to have you with us today talking about giving. And It's one of my favorite things to talk about, as you might be able to tell. I have a lot of energy about it. And, I'm just amazed at how, really the universe is set up for us to succeed. And the knowledge of certain laws will help us move forward in a really beautiful and powerful way. And I think sometimes we don't know the principle. But now I want to say, if you know the principle, but you're not acting on it, well, then, friends, that's on you. I hate to say it, but that's on you. Yeah. So the universe has already done everything. The laws are already in place. And hopefully you were thinking on the break about, am I out of alignment with my giving? Like, if you start worrying about the next bill, if you start worrying about the price of gas, if you start worrying about, then there's some work for you to do around this. The other thing I wanted to mention is that usually issues around money, I'll say usually, like always, it's either going to be coming from your childhood and your family's view around money. And usually whole families are like a little subculture, of their own. Oftentimes in psychology, it's called the family code. Usually it's around behaviors, like emotional behaviors. But the truth is, money is a social behavior. And so depending on your family's view of it, that's often where you picked up, ideas about it. And in my work many years ago, I had to go back to the time, like there was a single moment where I realized I didn't think there was enough. And I literally knew I took on that belief, which of course is a self-limiting belief. And based on my experience, it wasn't like that was a crazy belief. It was really based on third dimensional facts. Right? So you might say, well, you may say there's enough, but I can tell you I've got this and this and this and this. Yes, those are third dimensional facts. You have bills to pay, you have a mortgage, you've got a car, you've got gas, et cetera, et cetera. There's things to pay. So I'm not questioning any of that. But what I'm saying is there is a higher reality that's going on as well. So we live in the third dimension, this world. It's where it's the ups and downs, the blacks and the whites, the opposites. Many mystics call this the land of the opposites. I think of it as this is the relative world. This is the matrix, right? But there is a higher reality, the real with a capital R, or the absolute, capital A. In other words, there is a reality that is bigger, wider, more expansive, where anything is possible. And what's hard for us as humans is that those two worlds coexist in us fairly equally, right? We're spirit, soul, and body. And so right now, especially at this time in our culture, we are inundated with messages in a different way than ever before. So I'm going to have you pause that thought and tell you about where I just was and how it took me back probably about 100 years. I was able to go to an area called Hot Springs, North Carolina. Hot Springs is a small little town. I don't know what the number of people is in the town. I'm not sure you could say for sure how many people live in Hot Springs, but I've spoken about it before when I talked about Max Patch, and it was very early on in the podcast. But Hot Springs is where my great-grandmother lived. It is where she taught music at a school there. And in 1916, a man named Cecil Sharp went into the mountains of North Carolina and collected folk songs that had been brought over from England. So you can already see, you're probably already feeling how this is already taking you way back. Mm-hmm. Well, what was interesting is I got to stay in that home, and we got to even play music in that same room. Well, where I should finish that sentence, that same room where the songs had been collected in 1916, and the same piano was even still there. And I slept there. I stayed there in one of the rooms. And so her home was a boarding house, years and years ago, right? In the early 1900s. The home was built in 1840. That's how old it is. And it's called Sunnybank Inn. And it's a retreat and hostel now for hikers on the Appalachian Trail. So having said that, why am I saying that? Well, when I was there, and when even my 15-year-old, we left our phones in the room. And we just experienced life. And because everything around us was so old, we thought differently. My mind was less busy. And we were less inundated with messages from the outside world. So it took us into a different consciousness. And what I noticed is it was very easy to be at peace in that environment. It was very easy to think about, what do I want to do with my time and my energy? Like, I was really inspired to go back and help the owner a little bit on a couple things on the house I felt like I could help with. It's because it's like without him, we wouldn't have this great family history. So what am I talking about? Am I talking about giving, or am I talking about my family history? Yes. The reason I told you all that is that when life was set up in a way that I was hearing less messages, I didn't have to work as hard to get my consciousness back in alignment with what was good and real and true and godly. So right now in our world, we're told moment by moment, anytime you're looking at news or Instagram or Facebook or all those, I know we talk about that, but we always talk about it because I want to lift you up to the fact that it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to do that every single day, right? And as you can come, because all those messages are telling you how bad you are, how much you need this product, et cetera, et cetera. And if you can just come out of that, take a break from some of that, then you're going to get real clarity about what's yours to do. You'll get back in the flow nearly immediately. Like, take a whole day off of social media. Imagine a whole week off social media. And it'll put you more in alignment with really who you are and what your purpose is. So think about that, because when what I'm saying about money, it gets triggered, well, then it gets reinforced by all the messages of not enough. Just look at the news today. It will tell you there is not enough. Prices are going up. Why are you not more scared? And look at the stock market, and look at Bitcoin, look at cryptocurrency, and they're taxing that, and blah, blah, blah. The voices are so loud in the opposite. That's why that's why we're here saying, there is enough, I promise. There is enough. Lifting that up, being aware of that, putting yourself in the flow. You have the power to do that, to go beyond what culture says about it.
By the way, Hot Springs has 530 people.
I was going to say it's got to be under 1,000.
Yeah, 530, and is only 3.5 square miles.
Yeah. We walked all over the town, while we were there. Yeah. I've been there my whole life. If you've never been to Hot Springs, it's a pleasure.
I used to live in North Carolina, and I was never in Hot Springs. I went to school, in Boone, and I never went to Hot Springs. So, yeah, we'll have a link to the Wikipedia page. Lots of really fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there. There's also an internment camp for the Japanese there in World War II. So a lot of, not so fun history as well, like that. But it is a fact, and it is history. But here's the crazy thing: an espresso shop opened. 530 people had to have. Well, it was an art gallery, an espresso shop, and junk store. I mean, a little bit crystals. A little bit of everything. Yeah, the town doesn't know what to make of that. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I think it was also biker weekend when I was there, by the way, which was also cool. Nearly everybody in town was carrying too, speaking of that. So if you have a problem with seeing people carry guns, that's not going to be the town for you.
Yeah.
So, but the home, that Mr. Elmer bought, that was my great grandmother's. He's Buddhist, and it's a real place of peace. I just find that so fascinating, even though he grew up in the church. So, a real place of history. And yes, being in that environment was so beautiful. There was a window always open. You could always hear the birds. There were a couple hikers there from the Appalachian Trail. We got to hear a little of their stories. They joined our family for music. I mean, literally, it was like going back 100 years. It's like that every time I go. And that home has always been, a safe place for people on the road. And the prices are so inexpensive. It's ridiculous. I think it's like $60 a night or something like that. I think for hikers, it's $50. I mean, who's ever even heard of that anymore?
Yeah.
And everybody shares different bathrooms. So there's like a bunch of bedrooms, and then there's like two bathrooms on a hall.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But really, really meaningful time. So, and I'm not one that says we need to go back to the way things were, because we know the way things weren't always good and healthy. But what I know right now, and what my concern is for our culture, is because the suicide rate is going up, the violence rate is going up. So clearly people are pissed as hell. Mm-hmm. And there's no other way to say it. Either the anger is going outward and we're seeing this violence, or it's going inward and we're seeing suicides. Mm. So clearly the direction we're going isn't working, but nobody seems to notice or care. The people that are promoting these negative images, all they see is, this is what we make money on.
We've tried nothing and we're out of ideas.
We've tried nothing. We're out of ideas. Exactly. And I'm over here going, guys, there's another way. Hey, yep. Over here.
Yep.
Over here. There's also a limit to the things I will do to try to get people's attention. I'm not going to wear a bathing suit on Instagram to get somebody to read my posts. I'm sorry. You're going to have to come a little higher than that, friends. But so forgiving, wherever you may be in your journey with that, my hope is that from what we're saying today, you'll just give it some thought. And what I know is that what we're always seeking to do, is to grow, prosper, evolve. We always come back to, those three statements, right? Grow, prosper, evolve. Grow, prosper, evolve. And so we're seeking really to live a conscious life. And when we're conscious, it means we are open, we are vulnerable, we are aware. We are in a thoughtful process. We are in a thoughtful process. Remember several weeks ago when I said, I'm working with a process with a dear friend who I just absolutely love. And I said something like, I'm in process. I don't usually speak about it, but I want you to know that things that matter that much really deserve our attention. And what I wanted to tell you today is that, boy, did I get some deep answers, and I was able to do some forgiveness work. And the truth is, all is well. I just needed to get a little bit of awareness around my expectation, and I couldn't do it until I was with my family recently and did some big forgiveness work. I realized my expectations were out of what was reasonable, even though it didn't seem like it at the time. Is that I was expecting a friend to be like a brother. And once I could forgive my brother, all was in right alignment again. So see, that took time. That took some thinking and praying. It took some journaling. It took some forgiving. This is what I mean about living a conscious life. I had feelings about all of it. I told you, let's see. And I thought, well, maybe I just need to back off this relationship. And I'm glad I didn't back off the relationship, that instead I did the soul work around it. So this is what I mean about your giving. I'm not saying sit down and write a check out of fear. I'm saying give some thought. Notice what it is you're thinking about money. Are you in the flow? Are you out of the flow? If you're feeling out of the flow, do a little journaling. Where did this start? Like, where does this come from? Because I don't want to deal with this every time I get a bill in the mail. Because, friends, we're not kids anymore. We're adults. And we don't have to hold on to those old limiting beliefs of childhood around money. We don't have to hold on to the limiting beliefs that our current culture has around money. There is enough even for you, even for me. There is enough. If you're not experiencing that right now, it is not because God is withholding. It is because your beliefs, your practices are not in alignment with the abundance of the whole universe. So you are capable, very capable of righting that ship. You're very capable of getting yourself into the flow of good because you are the creator of it. It's like God has already given us all the laws and all the ways, but you have to align by shifting your behavior into aligning with that truth. Giving is a wonderful way to align with the good God has for you. It says to the universe, thank you. It says to the universe, I trust. And it will deepen your faith in a way that few things can. To know that all is truly well, that I am loved and supported by the whole universe. So my prayer for you as you do this, work in consciousness, as you become more conscious around giving for yourself, that you will be able to make a real difference in somebody that's supporting you spiritually, wherever that may be. It could be supporting our channel, which is supporting people all over the world. It could be supporting your own home church. It could be supporting a teacher or even a friend that's really supported you, that's lifted you up spiritually, and you simply want to say thank you. Giving will put you in the flow of God's good. This is my prayer for you. So as you go about your week this week, friends, hear my little voice in your head saying, are you in alignment? Are you in alignment? And are you giving to the degree to keep yourself in the flow of God's good for you? And remember that it feels good to give. It feels good to give. So if you're starting to move into fear, take a deep breath, center yourself, and before you give, because you want to align that giving with this good energy, okay? So we thank you for listening today, dear friend. As always, we're happy and honored to support your journey. And we are always praying for you for God's highest and best in your life. So blessings on the journey, dear friend, and we'll see you very soon.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2022 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.